If you look at the overall real world asset economy, it could be probably 30 to 40 trillion dollars. No one knows the numbers, how big these are. And blockchain as a technology really only stands out to solve problems of that scale.
Welcome to FUMO, our Future of Money podcast. It's our new season, we're rebranded and we're relaunching. But we're still the same. Gaurav and myself are your hosts. We're produced by CFTE, sponsored by XDC Tech, and a big shout out to MFTA, our community partners, and hopefully more community partners soon, Gaurav.
Absolutely.
Today we're going to be talking about blockchain technology, and specifically real-world assets. And I'm delighted to have with us the founders of the XDC Network, Atul and Ritesh. And with them, we're going to spend the next half an hour or so getting into what is a real-world asset in the blockchain context. What is a layer one? How do you build a layer one? What's it like building a business and scaling in a Web3 ecosystem? And many more, including all the questions on your mind, such as, are we going to get an ETH ETF and more? Atul, Ritesh, welcome to the episode. It's a delight to start 2024, the new season. And Atul, I want you to tell the audience, in your own words, real-world asset. What is an RWA in a blockchain context, and how does that fit into the XDC mission or journey?
Yeah, first of all, thank you so much. It's a pleasure being on this podcast. Happy New Year, everyone. Well, without complicating any terms, real-world asset is nothing different than this water bottle that we have here, or the cup of coffee that you sip every morning, or the toothbrush that you use, or the car that you use in your Uber, or the one that you drive, or the apartment that you stay in, or the plane that you sit inside. This is the as simple as it can be. These are real-world assets. Now, almost everything that we do in our day-to-day basis are based on some of these things that we consume or use on daily basis. These are all real world assets. Now, why is the whole RWA, real world asset trend, has come to the blockchain world? First of all, it's literally 40 to 50 trillion, probably 100 trillion. I don't even know the numbers. They're so big because they're part of everyday lives. That's the size of what we consume as people on an everyday basis. But if you go into the details, like if for a cup of coffee that you sip, where were the beans farmed, right? How did they come here? How did they travel in the nice pack? How did they actually get to make that coffee finally into to the cup that you're having? Or the steering that you're holding, where the rubber came from? How did that actually get manufactured? Where the raw materials from that came, and how did that actually come and to be at the car that you are riding into? This is now where the things get interesting, right? Because every part of that supply chain, from manufacturing, raw material sourcing, to the deep tier suppliers, all this supply chain is massively linked financially. And today, the banking system is kind of inadequate to serve this. That's the reason why blockchain has been looked at a major technology to solve the massive interconnectedness of this massive economy that we're looking at. Because if you really look at from the manufacturer to the shipping to eventually how stuff gets to every individual, today there is no banking system that can track it. The payments are very delayed. The fundings are inadequate. And that does cause potentially massive catastrophes, like we saw in the COVID-19 world. What happened suddenly, or even just one ship, that was stuck somewhere in the canal, caused so much disruption. So this is something that we overlook on day-to-day basis, but it is massively linked to our day-to-day lives. And in the context of blockchain, how do you represent a real-world asset? Like if you have an apartment in a building, that's like a title deed. Or if there was a shipment of coffee that you ordered, it could be represented by an invoice or a purchase receipt. Once you start really getting these key documents or data recorded on a blockchain, you can have like this world of unlimited possibilities with it to solve the problems that have not been solved before. Let me tell you, there's a $5 trillion gap in just trade finance alone. If you look at the overall real world asset economy, it could be probably 30 to 40 trillion dollars. No one knows the numbers, how big these are. And blockchain as a technology really only stands out to solve problems of that scale. That's as simple as I could be in explaining.
No, absolutely. So what blockchain as a technology is doing is, at the start you talked about coffee beans, it's like a provenance. We are often, whether it's coffee beans or diamonds, we need to know where has it come from, right? Has it been sourced, particularly now many of us care about, has it been sourced ethically? We need to track the supply chain. And then there's also a payment angle, because there's a way of moving value instantaneously, atomically, 24/7. And we'll come back later in this conversation to actually building XDC. I think, Gaurav, you're going to get into questions about building XDC. But the way I think about it, and I was in a few conferences recently, I was talking about this from an RWA perspective, saying, I'm not a blockchain maximalist. Some people are like, blockchain's going to take over the world. And then there are other people in what we call the TradFi world who are like, none of this is all like pudgy penguins, or don't tell me about JPEGs. The system works. For me, the analogy is we're moving value. And just like when we move people, we used to use roads from the Roman times and before. And then about the 1830s, railways came. And then we built lots of railway lines, first in the UK, then in India and France and elsewhere. And in a way, blockchain is like another transport network. We're just moving money and value. Yeah, it's an infra network. And you're just creating another railway line. And the roads will still get better. We don't replace the roads. But then at some stage, these early steam carriages that we had, early blockchain becomes a maglev or a high-speed train or so. But we'll come back to that. Before we get onto that, let's again define some more terms. Ritesh, I want to bring in, we often talk about layer one blockchains, and XDC is a layer one blockchain. What is a layer one blockchain? What does that mean?
So I think, thank you, Ronit, for having me here. And as you discuss about, train networks, you talk about infrastructures where they are traveling from one place to another place. Similarly, when we talked about a blockchain infrastructure, layer one is a base infrastructure. And what we observed, 5 years before, it was too much hype about Bitcoin, about layer ones, and I don't want to go into that particular hype. But what we observed, whenever someone is building on a blockchain, they required a reliable infrastructure. There are three important elements. Okay, first element is suppose some startups or some real world use case, they are building on a blockchain. They should blockchain should solve certain problems. Okay, they say, okay, I am going from point A to point 1 at $1, and you says I will take you to Rocket and I will charge $1,000. That's not a feasible thing. So layer one is a base infrastructures where other can build on. It's a base blockchain infrastructures. We have to make sure that the gas fees, it's a bigger problems with many layer one network. So we decided, the fees should be almost nothing. So at least anyone can come and they can use the public infrastructures of a blockchain. They can build a beautiful use case on a blockchain network. Similarly, if you look at a mining site, okay, in layer one, previously it was proof of work. And to be very frank, I hardly met any people, they are making money out of the mining. So we observe this problem, if you want to create a decentralized infrastructure, there should be people, those who comes to the with some certain kind of infrastructures, and they becomes a validator for a layer one network. So one is a use case you want to deploy on layer one network. One is about infrastructure providers. Third thing, it should be decentralized. So we cannot give all benefit to the those who are bringing with the infrastructures, or we cannot give entire benefit to those who are building on it. And so we have to manage these three important aspects, whether it's a decentralization, whether it's a core infrastructures. Third thing, it should be feasible for any ecosystems, those who want to build on blockchain infrastructures. So layer one is base infrastructures where anyone can build anything, and it should be feasible. So we try to solve all these problems. And if you look at XDC network history, like, when we went on a live net, most of the problem has been solved. Like whether it's energy consumption, whether it's a gas fee part, whether it's a reward to the infrastructure providers. So we created a beautiful smart contract platform where we solve almost all the problems. So that is all about a layer 1 networks.
Right. So layer 1 is base infrastructure. A blockchain is a decentralized piece of technology, and what you're providing is a efficient, reliable, low cost. You give out gas fees. That's about transaction costs. Low cost way of doing transactions. Let's delve into building XDC. And Gaurav, I want you to jump in and talk about building the ecosystem, building the company, and what's it like in Web3 versus Web2? But over to you, Gaurav.
Thanks a lot, Ron. It's very clear and super interesting. From the onset of a conversation, it's very clear two things very distinctively. One is you're both very experienced founders. You're not wandering into a space where you don't know what to do with the canvas that's presented with you. You're experienced artists, right? I like to put it that way, because when I talk to a lot of younger entrepreneurs, no offense, guys, what happens is they look at possibilities, but they're not as anchored. They're dreaming, and that's not a bad thing. But what's very clear is the experience that you gents have in building comes straight through.
And Gaurav, you've been, sorry to jump in here and to hype you, but you invested in, as you tell me regularly,
in context, to be fair,
500 plus companies,
yes,
mainly in fintech. So we call Gaurav 500 startups Thar. But you've had a lot of practical experience.
Yes.
100 companies plus directly, 400 through VC funds. Yeah. Talk about, in the context of, as you said, more experienced founders, why does that matter? I thought we all want the 18-year-old kid or the 21-year-old kid dropping out of Stanford, and that's what we're going to invest in. No, isn't that what we want to do?
We do, but
why do you want to invest in these older guys?
You know why? Because it's what's super clear in the beginning is the efficiency of building an ecosystem where people feel the reliability and security to utilize it is supremely important. And that's something I want them to tell me right now is, guys, it's amazing. I'd love for you to explain to us, how did you start the business? I want to talk about what you built before. We'll get into that later. I want to talk about where you started from. How many people did you start with? And how many people is today? So if you started with 5 people and today you're 500, can you walk us through that timeline, that journey, how much you built? Because you've talked about a lot of things and solving a lot of problems. I don't think people appreciate perhaps what you built and in what time frame. Walk us through that. How did you guys meet and start building?
Yeah, so I and Ritesh have been working on various startups in the international trade space. We've together reached revenues of tens of millions of dollars before starting XDC Network. We have seen even the bad side in 2008 where everything went bust. But that taught us a lot of things. So we have like this great chemistry and understanding of what we really want to do together. I mean, first of all, it is not just like, oh, we have free time and we want to build something. It's looking at, hey, let's solve this massive problem, right? And that really drives us. And when you look at that and then how to solve that problem, then you start looking at all the components that you had, right? So when we started, it was just 2. It was not even 5. It was just 2 of us. Oh, wow. That's how we started. And then we saw, hey, this is a massive problem. It excites us to really solve it.
And what year was this in?
This was around 16-ish, till like we were officially launched in 2017, but it all started since 2016. So we start, looking at, hey, this is a problem. These are the existing components we want to solve. Ethereum existed back then. We looked at Ethereum. We were almost going to start, building on Ethereum as it was layer 1. Right? Yeah, it was obvious. It was one of the great development of that time. But when we started using it practically, we thought, hey, look, this is great. But if you are, want to build a car that's going to use an engine, which is going to cost you $100 for 1 kilometer, or I mean, I could be overhyping, but it's going to be similar. The mathematics are still similar.
Too much.
Yes.
You're creating obstacles.
Yes. And then what about the use cases or the problems you want to solve? That's not even going to provide for using the base infrastructure like that. So we started re-architecting First of all, the technical side of Ethereum. We completely re-architected Ethereum's virtual machine and created the XDC network out of it, changed the consensus mechanism, created an amazing consensus that's really, really cost efficient. And then from that point, it was really taking the business statement to the world. So we have built a great community. Today we have grown from 2 of us to we have like thousands of people working for XDC. I think the overall communities could be a couple of million people, maybe more or less, I don't know, but it's growing very rapidly. But you see, all these people are coming from a background where they relate the use case about RWAs. So today people are talking, today RWA has become trend, but if you look at our very early presentations back in 2017, RWAs is something that we've addressed since then. So we have a community which are small business owners and maybe suppliers to big corporations. Half of the world's population is really employed by the small business, and that really half of the world's GDP as well. So while you look at one Apple computers or one Tesla, the other half of the behind the scenes economy is driven by small businesses and people who have practical problems. They're the one who are actually farming the coffee beans they're shipping. It's not like one Starbucks giving you that coffee, but there's so much of behind the scenes out there. So the community that we have built is actually people who relate to that kind of thing. They're the people who actually face that kind of problem in whether transacting around the world or finding difficult to fund a transaction or make a shipment and that's really was our storytelling ever since we started, and that's how it started growing. And then everyone also gets excited, right? Because you want to solve a very big problem, right? Everyone, as much as you get charged up, everyone else also gets charged up with that problem statement.
I think, it's super interesting to hear the story, but what's also super interesting is blockchain technology, Web3 as we call it today, this entire world which we are exploring and advancing and putting real world assets and real use cases into implementation on a daily basis, whether you can see it or it's in the background, like you say, that's functioning on a daily basis. Another thing in parallel that's so interesting to understand is, given your experience, given your backgrounds of working in businesses, cloud computing, creating opportunities, technologies, using technologies, what was the difference you saw in your previous experience of building a business, a use case implementation versus the scale and scope at which you built effectively your own protocol and your own ecosystem? How did that compare?
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting question. And I tell you, you should do a general business where there is a CEO, CTO, there is a team, there is a salespeople, there is a marketing people, later on social media teams and stuff. But here it's all about, decentralized autonomous organization, where we call it DAO, where you are driving a business or you are driving a network with the help of the community. Okay, so there is no standards available, like whether it's a smart contract standard or in general standards about how to run a decentralized autonomous organization. So we did lots of research into this part. We talking to communities every time, and I like to give you one small example. Like many times we read in newspapers or in media that this particular network they upgraded and nobody created any problems or objection for this kind of update. We try to give certain suggestion to the community, look, now we want to move this consensus to a little bit here, and I got more than 3,000 comments, and this is not the right thing for the blockchain network. So we started realizing that it should be more decentralized and user centric or a community centric. So we need to give lots of power to the community. Okay, now community, they are very different. Like some of them they are from business side, some of them from regulator side, some of them they are tech people, and it's a well diverse community. So it's managing well diverse community. Second challenge comes how to put into the smart contract. So we are working since almost 2 years with our lots of experience around DAOs. We came out with the product called DAOFin. Okay, it's a smart contract, open smart contract standards for decentralized autonomous organization, where we try to solve all the problem where community can vote. masternode holders or validators, they will have a little bit more power because they are putting more money on our network. And there is a third team called jury. Jury is like subject matter experts. So if I want to execute something related to fintech, I will go to the fintech experts and I will ask, whether this is what we are planning. So it's a mixed combinations of everything where community is taking a decision. Masternode also gives their feedback, but things executed after the approval from the jury member, those who are like industry experts. So we're going to launch this DAOFIN like protocol, you can call it, and it's be open source. It's open source, and going forward, all the decision making will be online, on chain. So everybody knows what is the decision, who is taken, who came out with the proposal, who approved, how many people they voted for this approval, what was the feedback from a jury, and how fund transferred from the ecosystem pool to the particular levels.
And this is why experience shines through, because I think there's a long-term vision here. And it's very clear. And when you look at the fundamentals of architecting a business or the fundamentals of grouping and working together with the people that are building or using the infrastructure and the ecosystem, it's very clear there's a conscious effort towards the long-term build. I think right, because I think younger founders face different pressures with constructs for building maybe artificial results a bit too quickly, or perhaps they don't return business economics in different ecosystems as quickly. So
and just to be clear, we've got nothing against younger founders, right?
No, I mean,
We've had a lot of young founders. Oh, they're still young. They're still young.
wow. Okay, so that's all on you now.
That's all on me. Yeah.
So
Yeah. Didn't we have like some 18-year-olds or 17-year-old guy on our podcast last season?
Yeah, because one of the things we do is yes, absolutely. We invested. So we do like you do. Well, yes, like you do. You're trying to advance the community.
Yeah.
We do a no fees, no carry ecosystem where we invest in a 17-year-old who's going to Stanford doing AI startups. Yeah. So we understand what it is like for younger founders. So yes, and I'm sure XDC as well. Yes, I did. Yes, thank you very much. I know. But I think XDC does the same thing, right? You're a benevolent organization that allows people to interact, experiment, understand at the far end of the ecosystem with real world assets that are extremely important and require financial regulation constructs, review, smart contracts that have legal implications. And on the other side, perhaps other people that are learning, how does this world work? So it's fascinating. It's fascinating. I learn more and more. It's interesting, guys. Amazing.
I want to take the conversation a bit to where we are now and just focus in on a couple of things. And actually, there are two areas I want to talk about. One is ETFs. We can't get away from ETFs. They've been in the news. And the second area is the whole, I think it's a meme, right? Habibi come to Dubai. Is that a meme? I don't know. It's a saying.
It's a song.
It's a song.
It's a meme.
Yeah.
If you have Instagram, you know it.
Yeah. Habibi come to Dubai. By the way, Habibi, please, we're full now. No, just kidding. Keep coming to Dubai. We'll solve the traffic. Let's start with ETFs, exchange traded funds. That was a big part of the narrative, and cryptos, and sometimes all about narratives. Actually, investing in general is about narratives. Life's about narratives. Atul, what was the whole? I mean, you have strong views on the Bitcoin ETF. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Was that just a little bit of an overhyped narrative? And looking ahead, perhaps more importantly, we're going to have potentially an ETH ETF. Love to hear your thoughts on, is there going to be an ETH ETF? What is that going to mean for the ecosystem?
Yeah, I think fundamentally ETF gives those people an access point to Bitcoin, which who don't know how to manage a wallet or how to securely keep Bitcoin. So I think over the period of long run, it will create more liquidity in the system. That's for sure. In the short term, I think a few things happen. First of all, the FOMO that's created out of that event is something which is, I feel bad about it because a lot of people get drawn into it, and who are financially investing, and I think that's not good in a way, because you've seen everyone is now seeing the after effect of it. The FOMO has dried up and the whole thing is down, because see, you take a cab from point A to point B because you want to really go there, right? You take a flight because you want to go there. You eat because you're hungry. You need water. So I think fundamentally the utility side of things is really important. There are, I think, countries where Bitcoin is acting as a good currency system because the local currency system has just gone completely out of balance. But at the same time, I think in the larger context of the world, it's still, I think, acts as an insurance to some kind of centralized failure, but an insurance, not like a mainstream. I think it will always remain that way. So coming back to the point of ETFs, I think in the long run it will be maybe beneficial. It has created more access points, but short-term cycles are something more questionable. Same applies to ETH ETF. I think yes, those people want to access this asset class without worrying about technologically, how to access it, how to keep secure in wallets. They will get to access. But then again, these events are so much hyped and oversold that you probably discounted that already. It's like, hey, someone's going to build airport somewhere, and the land prices have shot up so much that it's like already discounted for the next 20 years. So that's also very questionable how these cycles are really taken, because that's what there's a financial risk for common people who get exposed to this kind of marketing. And but that being said, I think our statement has been, our mission has been more utility driven, and we'll stick to that. I mean, how much Tesla really, if you see, Tesla as a company has existed for so long, almost 10, 12 years now, but it's really 2017, 18 onwards that you've seen Tesla really create that, because first of all, the fuel prices went skyrocketing, and then people started realizing how easy it is to use actually electric cars, and that's the utility of it, where really it created an uplift in its value, not some kind of FOMO, right? Which I think will prevail in the long term for any project or any asset class.
Yeah, I think, yeah,
I need a little bit of FOMO, but not too much.
Yeah, I like to add, one
yes.
more part. Like, I remember CME, like, Chicago Mercantile Election, they listed Bitcoin futures back in 2017, and that time also it was so much FOMO within the end customers, within the institutions, and they jumping to buy that, this will create a miracle. This is not a miracle. Like, this is one steps, for the thousands of miles journey we are going to get. This is the one steps we are achieving. So I feel bad about the end retail customers, whenever they jumps with this kind of a news. I think it's not good.
No, there's a big hype and pump and dump, and I mean, I was asked to go on TV here in Dubai. I would mention the broadcaster's name, and they kind of wanted me. I got the sense to basically say Bitcoin's going up because of the ETF, and I was like saying, buyer beware. There's a Latin phrase, right? Caveat emptor, buyer beware, because as you said, when the airport's going to be built, the price goes up in advance. So in finance, we call it travel and arrive. To go back to the train metaphor, you kind of, if something is happening, we all know it's going to happen. It gets, people
it's
get
like,
priced in.
there should be some, next year journey. It's not that you are just discounting price for next 1 year or 2 years or 3 years within a month's time.
What's very interesting is you talked about Tesla, but I would see XDC as more Rimac. And the reason I say that is because Rimac builds a car, but actually what makes Rimac profitable is their technology. Okay. So what they actually do is they sell cars for $2 million in very small batches.
Really?
But they make hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars selling their technology back to all the global manufacturers who are using them components, all their components in electric cars.
Do you have one of their cars? Is that
No, I don't. But it sounds like that. Yeah. No, not yet. I've met him though. But
You've met him.
Mate is very inspiring.
I've seen your garage. There's some fancy cars in.
We'll talk about that later. But he's only 34, 35, and they've handed the keys to Bugatti to him to electrify, because they have so much faith in the fact that someone's built a business that understands using technology that's been farmed out and allowed other people to build their vehicles on that template and platform. They don't have to create it. So it sounds like XDC is like that. And what's super interesting talking about the real world applications is, right, what are you building and what have people built that you're most proud of or extremely significant on XDC that we can talk about today?
I think going back to the same Rimac example, we have created a platform where RWA assets can be tokenized, fractionalized, risk mitigated to be eventually settled in any currency that you want, and in a price where it's extremely competitive to where the fees of all these kind of transactions stands today. Now, this is our base model. This is our base technology. Anyone can use it. So we don't want to become a tokenization company. It's a protocol. We are supporting tokenization companies so that they can show that early success. Like Trade Tech, which is a big London-based company run by banking veterans. They were the ones who first tokenized trade finance assets on the network. Now they're tokenizing U.S. Treasury bills. We have supported Comtech Gold as a project which is tokenizing gold so that it can be brought from that inaccessible form onto a mainstream financial world. And there are other countless projects like Fathom and TradeFinex as a protocol. We have supported projects like Zoth and some others, funding societies who are eventually like these trade financial credit providers and who have used the power of tokenization, verification, fractionalization, and all that on the network. So we have showed that the technology works, and some of the early companies that we have supported have demonstrated that success. So that TVL only for trade finance now is, I think, close to probably something around $15 to $20 million. Now that's small TVL compared to what the other blockchain ecosystem boast of, but this is a real world asset TVL, which is a great difference. So it's not a speculative crypto TVL, it's a real world asset TVL. Now, having proven this model, it's an open standards. Anyone can come and build on this, right? And the network remains open for them to come in. So yes, rightly summarized by you, our play is getting the world to use it, and so that we have built a very specific standard kind of template or infrastructure for RWAs to be tokenized, verified, fractionalized, and eventually settled and risk mitigated on-chain XDC network with extreme competitive fee structure, which otherwise is not possible in any other infrastructure.
Wow. I think, you're building a number of businesses yourself as well, right? I mean, on the real world. Where are you seeing a geographical uptake here? Because we talked about Habibi come to Dubai, and here we are in Dubai, and you all are here as well, but you're international, you're very much geographically spread out. Can you talk more about some of the geographies that you're in, or you're seeing perhaps a very fast movement of adoption with these real world assets and the securitization and adoption of XDC?
Yeah, so I think, blockchain, it's like, one very neutral kind of a network. Yeah. And we observed everywhere, like, whether we go to Hong Kong, whether we go to Singapore, whether we go to UK, whether we go to Australia, like all institutions, use case, they are getting deployed on the network. So I don't like to give a specific location as such. It's a global network, anybody can build. And wherever we go, we always get attraction. I've been to Hong Kong last quarter, and I observed that people, they are crazy about building a use case on using a blockchain network. So overall, it's a global trend. I don't feel like it's only one country, but some countries, they are very aggressive from the compliance side, from the regulation side, like MS, you call it Monetary Authority of Singapore. They are also very aggressive. They given many license, like they give license for custody, like they approved custody license way big in 2021.
So very
forward thinking. Here also VARA, ADGM, DIFC, they have diverse kind of a license, and I see trend is growing, like people, they are watching each others and they are learning from each others. and the trend is uptrend. Like if I look at like last 8-10 years of this journey, everything is going up in terms of adoption, in terms of regulation, in terms of licensing. So overall trend is positive all over the world.
And it's interesting that some of those locations you mentioned, like Hong Kong, Singapore, Dubai, Abu Dhabi. I was just in Switzerland last week, so I probably throw in Switzerland as well. These are all, without being disrespectful, smaller places. But they're city-states in many cases. And it kind of reminds me, okay, I'm going off on a riff here, but in the West, in Western Europe, like that great Renaissance period in the 1400s, 1500s, the Medicis and Michelangelo and so on, these came out of little cities that used to compete with each other. But then they create these amazing, works of history, art, but not just art and history, but a lot of the banking formats we use came from there. Letters of credit. Standards, like letters of credit, bills, those all came out of the Medicis, double entry bookkeeping being popularized. I know this is getting a bit geeky.
No.
But I think...
You're getting into smart contracts, right?
Yeah, but basically, yeah.
You're just describing the origin.
And these are the little city-states. They may not have invented it, but then they kind of industrialized it and popularized it. And I look at what's happening down the road in Abu Dhabi, here in Dubai, in Hong Kong, Singapore, in Zurich and Zug. I think the future is going to be they're going to be the hubs in this node we're building.
I absolutely agree with you 200%. And you can have a genuine global business, right?
So it's not Habibi come to Dubai, it's Habibi come to Singapore, Dubai, Hong Kong, Japan, etc. We've had a great conversation. Is there something we haven't covered? Maybe the last point, you're still investing in businesses, we're investing in businesses sometimes together. And what is the criteria? If there are founders out there, should the JPEG guys and girls not come to you? Or who should be, we were talking about JPEGs last night, right? Nothing wrong with JPEGs, but who are what's the criteria? If there are founders out there, they're sitting right now and they're sitting in wherever. It could be in Brussels, it could be in Bangalore, it could be in Bratislava.
They've got XDC tattoos.
Hopefully they've got something else tattooed, but but
and they're like, okay, we need to do funding or
Beyond
male, female, whatever. What is the criteria you'd be looking at for them to approach you rather than someone else?
Sure. So I think one of the first factors is it works both ways, like why they should approach us and why we should consider them, right? What we look at and why we should consider someone is, hey, someone is so driven to solve one industry scale problem, and really Web3 or blockchain is relevant to solve that. And there has to be some stake from the founders themselves to create that product, to get that early adoption, and to be able to show that, right? That's something that we consider. Now, someone who has done this, why they should come to us is because we are extremely passionate and supportive about solving real world asset related, any issues, problems, use cases on XDC Network. So a lot of things that we have done is tailored around that, right? And our community is our biggest asset, who understands that. So the community will stand up and support these kind of ventures. So it's not just dependent on us investing in them, it's about the whole community supporting them in them as well. I think that's like a great combination to go forward with. And we would definitely look at companies and ventures and entrepreneurs like that. Were really.
I like to tell, I like to add on Atul's discussion that, they should solve real world problems. Okay, if you look at, DEX, many DEX, if you go to traditional NASDAQ or Dow Jones, they have a professional market makers, and they provide liquidities and they provide pricing structures, and they gets benefit out of that. You turn into a DEX where community, they provide liquidity, and whatever fees they are generating, they are getting certain benefit out of that. So this is extension, you're giving more power to the end customers, if I say, Ronit, go and be a market maker or be liquidity provider with the Apple, it's very difficult. But you can go to a DAX and you can put certain tokens and you can become a market maker yourself. So this is extension of traditional problem. You are giving more access to the wider communities to be part of the network, to be liquidity providers. And similar, if we are doing a tokenization of assets, like whether it's a Comtech Gold or stable coins like Eurostatis, so they converted fiat into a digital token representative, and they are solving so many problems. At the same time, they should not charge a premium. It should be they are solving certain problems at reasonable cost.
Real world problems. Gaurav, you can have the last word. So these gentlemen told us what they would invest in. We talked a lot about founders, and in this context, obviously, we're talking about Web3 and blockchain. But if there are founders out there, and coming to you or coming to other people like Ritesh, what do you think the founders should be thinking about, particularly in this somewhat difficult fundraising environment? What should they be looking for?
I think from everything I've heard here today and thinking about it for a moment, I think there are two types of founders that should be approaching, these gentlemen and their institutions for funding. I think a group of people who are solving problems that need to be solved, where it could not be done before without the technology that's in play. So I think because the technology exists, people understand its true implementation, efficiency, cost effectiveness, and scale in their subject matter expertise, whether it could be media, whether it could be sports, it could be finance, it could be in charity, it could be in sustainability. I think whoever's a subject matter expert that really gets into understanding how the technology can benefit the field of expertise they sit in, that is one group of people that should reach out. I think the second set of founders are the extreme visionaries who set out to solve or create new ecosystems on the back of the technology that didn't exist before. So it's either creating opportunity for new revenue, new liquidity, new credit, new data sets, where those founders really come forward and think, everyone's solving what exists in front of them from subject matter experts, but in their lane, they understand what the future is going to look like, either from a creative aspect, either from an artificial intelligence aspect, or from a cloud computing or a data compression. They're looking so far ahead that they're saying, we're betting on what we can build now that everyone will use as the standard. So it's almost like, what is the next blockchain of blockchain?
So come build the future, but it has to solve a real world problem.
Or it could be creating a brand new infrastructure that everyone has to move to. Just like blockchain did for New Rails. So I'd say subject matter experts.
SME, subject matter experts.
Who want to understand the technology. And then super visionary.
But something that actually is grounded.
And so those people should reach out.
We're running out of time. Thank you to the audience for listening to episode 1 of the new season of FUMO. If you liked what you heard, and I hope you did, hit the subscribe button on Apple or Spotify. We're on YouTube too. And share this with your friends. They're into fintech, into blockchain, or just solving real world problems. It's been a pleasure to kick off episode 1 of the new season with Atul and Ritesh.
Thank you, Ronit.
And thank you, Gaurav. Pleasure.
Thank you.
Nice.